Ladies and gentlemen, here to Motorsport Days Live here at Silverstone. Hope you're enjoying the second day. I would give a massive introduction to our next session, but I think I'd run out of puff with the amount of people that we've actually got on the stage. So I'll allow the majority of the group to conduct this particular seminar, but the subject matter for this particular session is education in motorsport. Without the current establishments within colleges and universities across the length and breadth of Britain and Europe, the Formula One designers of tomorrow would not be able to hone their skills. So you're going to find out some fascinating insight into how the educational establishments of motorsport in Great Britain are channeling the new talent that will go on to win the Le Mans 24 Hours and Indy 500 races of the future. So I will hand over to the many numerous people within the world of motorsport: John Paul Latham of Student Motorsport, and Kevin Riley from the National Motorsport Academy, Alan O'Neill as well from SCU Motorsport, and the many various established people who are here. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jake. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Paul Latham, and we're here today to talk about education in motorsport. I'll introduce some of the panel. In fact, I'll introduce most of the panel today, and then we'll talk about what we're going to discuss, and then we'll proceed with a sort of a roundtable discussion. And if you've got any questions at any point, I don't think it's a problem to ask them there and then. It's quite an informal chat, really. So you've got myself. My name is John Paul Latham. I'm the founder of Student Motorsport. We've also got Russell Howard from Race Staff, Kevin Riley from the National Motorsport Academy, Robert Hyon from the Bolton National Centre for Motorsport Engineering, of course, Bolton University, Alan O'Neill from SCU Motorsport, Leon Wild from West Suffolk College, Stefan Rutenberg, who's a student, Jake Smith, graduate, and Charlotte Ford, who's also a former student. So is that everybody? Yeah? So we have a diverse range of people here today, which is diverted from the original program of myself and Russell spending half an hour talking about ourselves. We thought we'd bring in a few different people to make it more interesting topics of conversation. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to cover, and again, we can open the discussion to anything else that you're interested in today, or anything that you suggest. We're all up for suggestions. The current state of motorsport education today, our respective experiences, perhaps as tutors, students and otherwise, what the motorsport sector think about education and motorsport, what does the motorsport industry want from education, or perhaps vice versa, and what's actually being done to support education in motorsport and bring it closer together. So we'll leave the topics up there, and of course we'll hand over to some of the guys on the floor here. But this first topic is the current state of motorsport education, and Alan O'Neill thought it would be interesting to talk about some of the perceptions that there are in motorsport today. So perhaps, Alan, you'd like to kick things off, please.
Okay, hello everyone. I taught for about 3.5 years motorsport education at a college, and I think one of the first things that I'd say is that I could see straight away that the qualifications are not in line with what the motorsport sector want. When you find yourself in a workshop and saying to the students, this is the way you need to do it for the qualification, but then this is the way you'd actually do it at a race meeting, working for a race team, you start to see there's big differences. So, you know, we decided that we were going to do something about it.
Okay, is there anyone else that'd like to talk about that? Perhaps we have some colleges here as well, university.
Yeah, thanks. That's an interesting point from Alan, and I don't disagree in the slightest. From a university standpoint, we have to find a balance between the requirements set by the engineering council. So there are requirements for engineering, but qualification doesn't mean skills. Completely correct. Absolutely, completely correct. And what's really important for us as an education establishment is that we try and align, and this type of forum is exactly what this, you know, this is a big step forward, I would say, to try and make sure that we can start to align with what skills are needed. And we talk to a lot of our industrial partners, and we try and align our course to those with the restrictions we have. But what else can be done is it's an interesting debate.
What I'd like to add is, and you know, there needs to be an explanation of the sides that we're coming from. I dealt with the college level, which is the guys who want to go in, work on the race cars, set them up, prepare them. When Alonso stuffs it in the wall, they fix it, get it together, work till 3 o'clock in the morning. The universities are more focused on the design development side, and there are two different skill sets. One of the things that really frustrated me when you're inside the education sector is we were fully aware of colleges that offer motorsport courses, or say they offer motorsport courses, and they have the students working on things like a Ford Fiesta, Peugeot 307, never actually leaving the workshop, never going to get placements with race teams, and then they can still offer a level 3 motorsport qualification, which for me is wrong. If you're going to offer a motorsport course, it needs to at least give the individuals who are taking that course a fairly good chance, and you can never guarantee, but a fairly good chance of walking out, knocking on the door of someone like Williams F1, ProDrive, Malak, and having the chance to get a job. So it needs to be delivering the right skills, the right experience, and creating an environment for, delivering those skills.
Okay, so over to Charlotte Ford, please.
So I've just done, like Alan said, my level 3 in BTEC, and luckily I think where I studied that wasn't actually quite a big issue, but it was very rare for me to find this college. I did a lot of research, and it was one of many colleges that actually offered timetabled workshop time. A lot of others say, oh, we might be able to go in the workshop, we might not, whereas we spent 6 to 9 hours a week in the workshop working on actual cars, building them up to race spec. But another thing I did find was I didn't really like the idea of going to university, so apprenticeships are jobs in motorsport. But the issue I found was they want 3-4 years experience in motorsport, but it's difficult to get that because colleges have a reputation where teams don't want us because we don't get the skill sets that we need for a race weekend. So actually, from my point of view, I now have just set up my own race team, and my team is entirely made of students to give them the chance to actually gain real-life motorsport race weekend experience, so that in the future they can say, I have that experience, and go to teams with the right skill sets that they need to go into those race teams.
So just to remind you, we need to stay on the current state of education, not what we're doing. Let's stick on that topic for another few minutes.
At West Suffolk College, we've been on a bit of a journey to promote motorsport within our courses. We've just started off with our level 3, and it's going well. There is, like you say earlier, we want lots of practical things for the students to do. Because we've only just started, we're building an Arian race car, which is just over there if you want to go and have a look. But the idea is, once they've built that, they'll then start to use it for track days, learn some key skills. But we've also then worked a bit with Student Motorsport. We joined you again, I think it was mini challenge. The students got stuck in the pits and really enjoyed the day. Our vision is to then move forward and eventually we'll start to do some racing. And we've got a Puma as well that we'd like to move on to, like track day trophy, something like that. So
your current involvement in motorsport, what do you feel that people think about, college level motorsport?
What, within colleges?
Yeah, what's the perception that you're getting?
I think it actually gives the students see it as something a bit different. It gives them a better scope for their future. However, I do think that with funding issues and things like that, it can also prevent us from actually doing the full sort of course to how we want it to be.
Okay, so perhaps we can move over to some of the people that are directly involved in motorsport, perhaps Russell at Race Staff, on perceptions of education and motorsport. Please.
Perceptions of education, bloody hell.
Difficult one.
Yeah, where to start? I think, you know, there's two different angles for me. When students come to me or graduates come to me, you've got the whole university set, and we have some fantastic universities in the UK who do a brilliant job of, you know, on the education side for race engineers or performance engineers, wherever they might want to be. What's lacking for me is the guys that don't want to go to university, they want a hands-on experience. And what do they do? And the colleges are trying their best. I understand, and budgets are limited and so on to actually put cars on the tracks, very expensive. But you know, that'd be really good for me if they came through the college process, having even a most basic skill set. You know, I travel with a friend of mine who has a Le Mans team, and I talked to him about it quite a lot. And he says, look, you know, even the basic pit lane etiquette, as we called it, you know, do they know how to put? Do they know they're not allowed to step into a live pit lane if they haven't got the right fireproofs on and the right armband on in a professional race series? Do they know how to put graphics on the car? You know, with Smash and Bodywork up and there needs to be some new graphics on, they've got to be put on right on curved surfaces. It sounds simple, but it's not. Do they know how to manage the tyres? Do they understand the barcoding on the tyres? Do they know how to go and get fuel? Can they ride a quad bike so they can go and get the fuel? Do they know they've got to wear fireproofs when they do that? All this kind of stuff that gets missed.
They're given things, aren't they?
Yeah.
But I think if an institution is delivering a course around running a racing car in an actual racing team, they'll cover those things. And you do see that in many institutions across the UK, but not enough. So I agree with what you're saying.
So you've got that base level, and then of course you move on to the guys that want to be ahead of, well, not ahead, you just want to do something different. So if you talk about race mechanics, for me, race mechanics traditionally, I started off as one, traditionally worked their way up from Formula Fords or whatever, and through the formula to become race mechanics in Formula One or whatever. Now a lot of guys, even the race mechanics, have degrees these days, but not everybody, and you certainly don't need it to be a race mechanic. It's more focused on the hands-on experience side of it. And yes, if you want to be a simulation, engineer, then you're going to have to have a degree in the relevant subject or an aerodynamics guy and so on.
That's why it works well with having colleges and universities delivering different levels and subjects.
The UK is amazing to study motorsport, full stop. I mean, what all these guys do is incredible. And let's not forget that. We're not talking about it being a really horrible, terrible situation. We're in the UK, and we've got some of the best establishments there are in the world here. People want to come here to study, without a doubt, to go to these places. So it's not terrible. It's just how we can refine it, isn't it? And how we can make it a bit more fit for purpose. And all the things that these guys are doing are all relevant to the Alan's race car. Great idea. People, to get the hands-on experience at that level is great, as are all the other things, former students in the universities and so on and so on. They all got a role to play, depending where people want to work. And that's why I asked them, when the student comes to me and I say, well, where do you want to end up? Because that, where you want to end up dictates what you've now got to do to get there, doesn't it? Is it a college route? Is it a hands-on route? Is it a university route? Is it a master's? Are you going for the top jobs? Then you're going to spend a lot of time at university if you're going to do that, but that's what you want to do. That's fine. So where you want to end up dictates where this process you're going to go through, doesn't it?
Okay, so some positive things there, thank you. So if we can finish and wrap up this area with hearing from the last speaker, which probably asks Kevin if you'd like to get involved at this stage.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah?
Hold it closer.
Okay. Not many years ago, a friend of mine, Brian Henson, had his own Formula One team. The team consisted of a second-hand March, a horse box, and a few friends. And he was in Formula One, amazingly. Now, of course, it's completely different. Each team have got 2,000 staff just to run a couple of racing cars. Then there's people that make the engines and the gearboxes, quite separate. So the amount of employment in Formula One now is absolutely huge. But if you want to get a job in Formula One, you have to go via a computer. And if you haven't got a degree, the computer says no, don't even apply. So if you've got a degree, but it's the wrong one, you can't get a job in Formula One. The problem with that is that you've got to make a decision when you're quite young to go to a university and get the right degree. And if you haven't made that decision, you can forget Formula One. So there's a big gap in the market. People who've maybe got a degree, haven't got a degree, people who are at the rough end of F1 but want to get involved. What we do now is the world's first degree online. So you can study about 12 hours a week and get a degree in motorsport engineering. Then you can move on to a master's degree, which we also do, And if you want to get a seriously well-paid job in, for example, Formula One, there are other areas of employment, and then you need those qualifications. One of our first students, we met him in Cologne. He worked for McLaren, hadn't got a degree, was about to lose his job. He couldn't believe what he could see on our stand. He rang Ron Dennis and he said, Ron, if I go join this course online and get a degree, can I keep my job? The answer was yes. He's now a very well-paid McLaren employee. At the moment, we have more students studying for a degree, I think, than any other university in the world. Motorsport is a meritocracy. Good enough is never, ever good enough. You've got to strive to be the best. For example, if you want to learn about aerodynamics, it's okay to learn from somebody who knows a bit about aeroplanes, but really you need somebody who you know was really good. So we've chosen the guy that Michael Schumacher took from Benetton to Ferrari for 4 World Championships. He wrote our course, he's available to us, and when you are doing a degree with us, you haven't got to worry about can you keep up with the tutor in the class. You can just wind him back. Is the person telling you about this particular subject, this module, is he the best? Is this his best day? Well, we make damn sure of both, because we get the best guys in and we go over and over. We have him in the studio all day until what he's saying is entertaining, engaging, and makes you want to learn. So at the moment we have engineers from 7 Formula One teams on our course because they want to learn other areas of engineering, because Formula One is now highly specialised. We've got a guy called Chris, for example, in Mercedes Formula One engines. Well, he's got a top job, so why is he with us? And the answer is he wants to learn about other things, which he can't do in his current environment. So he'll spend about 12 hours a week learning about other things, and he comes to us for, we have a racing team as well. We run an ex-Works Le Mans Lotus, and that black Mosler over there, we won the championship last year in that car. And we have our students come at weekends. We have too many students now for them all to come. We rotate them, but they have a fantastic weekend. Motorsport is a passion. If you haven't got the passion, forget it, do something else. But if you've got the passion, you need to have the means by which you can engage that passion. So you need a degree. And if you can drive a racing car as well, so you've got a bit more knowledge of what's going on with the car, that's good. So next year we're starting our own racing driver school. We're also partnered with Lotus and other important employers. And the consequence of coming to the National Motorsport Academy to get your degree is we can guarantee you a job in motorsport as soon as you become a graduate.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, there's one point, I agree with a lot of what Kevin said, but I would argue you don't need a degree to be a mechanic. And this is something we've just come off the back of 3 months of research, talking to top race teams, and they've got mechanics who don't have any formal qualifications. And we've spoken to the teams about how we can address this. We are working on a methodology that will map across to the national academic framework. So, and there are people who go into college who all they want to do is work on the cars, the setup, assembling the cars, prepping them ready, and you don't need a degree to do that. And the unfortunate thing is, there is a lot of people out there who do not have either the will or the capability to do a degree for learning difficulties, and this is something that we've picked up on as a very, very strong message. So it's, there are people out there who want to go and become mechanics, want to work on the cars, prepping them, and I'd just like to clarify, going through the college route doesn't disadvantage you. You still have a good chance of going and becoming a mechanic.
Okay, thank you. So some valid points raised there, some very interesting points raised there, and some of the things that we've covered later on in the presentation, so thank you. What I'd like to move on now fairly quickly is just to go through the guests that we have today, and just a quick sentence or two on your experience in motorsport. So if we can perhaps start over with Russell and come round to myself, just what's your experience in motorsport?
Well, how I got into it?
Perhaps your journey to where you are.
Okay.
We've got 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
I started off as a Formula Ford mechanic, Formula Ford 2000 mechanic, Formula 3 mechanic, race engineer, Formula 3. Got tired of putting the cars back together when people kept crashing them. Managed to get a drive in a Formula Ford. Sold everything, started a business to pay for my new addiction. It is a bit like a drug. So then I managed to drive through the same set of series, through Formula Fords 2000s, Formula 3, and I ran out of talent and money at about the same time in Formula 3. Got really good at crashing it. The wife was fantastic at estimating the damage and the cost of the damage in the Formula 3 car. I had a fantastic time. Since then, I've done all sorts of different roles in motorsport in terms of management, marketing, sponsorship. I've worked with various teams. Endurance racing is my thing at the moment, so I've worked with quite a few endurance teams and Le Mans teams and so on. And I started Racestaff 8 years ago because people kept coming to me asking for staff. So I get my black book out and do I need a data engineer for Le Mans this week? And I'll have a look for somebody. And I thought I should be making a living out of this. You know? So I put the website up, and now 20,000 people are registered with us. We work with 400 different teams and companies around the world, from Formula 1 to Formula E to World Rally to just about every other job. We've had so many different jobs on. It's fantastic. Obviously, a lot of them are repeated mechanics and engineering roles, but there's some really unusual ones. I had a first time ever, we had a job for a race car valeter last month, which none of us saw coming, but it was for all the Formula 1 historic cars. We've had weather forecasting Formula 1 jobs on, as well as all the ones you can imagine. So and we've placed thousands of people in jobs around the world.
You have, and that's commendable what you've done, because what you're effectively doing is a lot of what the people here are doing is paying forward information and passion, and you know the only way the next generation learns is by passing information on. So if we can move on to the next person, please.
Yeah, so I'm Jake, so I'm a mechanical engineering student, so we get sort of basic theory through uni on motorsport. So where I've really picked up the experience is working with Alan. You know, he's got trackside experience in the 116 trophy. It's an endurance league, so it's just started up this year.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Stefan. I'm also a mechanical engineering student. Go to the same university as Jake. So I'm currently on placement as an automotive design engineer. So design is kind of my forte, or try to do the best job I can. But I have a big passion for motorsport, and I'd like to go into motorsport design. So that's why I joined the SCU project, and put a concept together, which you can see over there, and had a lot of experience working with the 116 trophy on the SCU BMW. So it's really good to get that practical experience to go along with my the theory I learned at university and at my day job. So I'm quite enjoying it, and I feel like I'm quite lucky to be in this position. So.
My passion started with motorsport photography when I was a young age, which then grew into media, PR for motorsport. And over the last 2 years, I've worked in British GT4 and European GT4. And now this year have started up as a freelance data engineer. And now recently have just set up my own race team in Genetta Juniors and hopefully GT5 Challenge next year.
I don't actually have a racing background. However, I used to work for BMW. Then I've moved on to education. I found my calling, a keen teacher, really enjoy that. I've moved up and progressed at work, and I'm now the head of the department. So I saw that we needed to try and give the students something a bit more exciting to get them revved up, so to speak. So we wanted to sort of join with motorsport. Lucky for me, I have some colleagues that have been in motorsport before and actually have taken on the course and actually pushed for that. But I think it's very important because it actually works with the students' character strengths. It promotes curiosity, it promotes their ownership, but also teamwork. I think it's all very important things that motorsport can bring our students. For that reason, I then think that will drive the future in our area we've got lots of jobs going that could be linked with motorsport and engineering. So I do think those character strengths that we've put forward really help with that.
Thank you.
Hi, Alan O'Neill again. I was very fortunate at a very early age. Got involved helping out running a sprint car when I was about 8-9 years old, and then working on a very expensive historic Maserati. So that kind of sowed the seed for me, passion for motorsport. I've ran a number of kart racing teams, raced myself, built karts myself, raced in series like the Fun Cup, BMWs. I had the real fortunate opportunity to work with a college up in Birmingham. We built 2 race cars, ran a couple of race cars for other teams, and got an understanding of the motorsport education sector at the FE level, the 16 to 18 college levels, the individuals who want to go and work on the cars. Getting an understanding of that, what the qualifications are, and what the issues are. So, yeah, I had a really fortunate sort of career.
So, as I'm here on behalf of the university, it's more than just me. So, collectively, we have close to 125 years' experience in motorsport, from mechanic all the way up to managing director level of world touring and rally projects. So, for us, we can kind of tap into the different staff in different areas. Our students have direct responsibility for the design and manufacture of hill climb and Formula Student cars. So we try and make sure our students build their own experience, which is really what this whole event is about. It's about the student experience. So for us, it's across the board, but realistically, it's the student that comes first. So giving them the practical experience, the design experience is really key for their development.
Thank you. And finally, Kevin.
In my 20s, my only interest in motorsport was Formula One. To get there is a long, hard, expensive journey. I started in Formula V, Formula Ford, Ford 2000, etc., to go to Formula One. Like thousands of others, didn't get there, ran out of money. So I stopped. Lost interest in motor racing, wasn't going to be an F1 driver, so do something else. So for 26 years, I went into various businesses. We started a thing called the National Design Academy. We have 30,000 students in 80 countries in different subjects, like Open University, but better. And then about 5 years ago, we thought, I wonder if, because it's become a hobby again, we should do this in motorsport. So at that time, I had a Ferrari challenge car, did the UK Challenge. Ferrari called me, went to Ferrari, and I did the Ferrari Challenge. And they treated me like a VIP, and I didn't know why. And the reason was simply that I was the oldest driver they'd got who could get onto the podium. And I looked like their customers, people that can afford Ferraris. So 24-year-olds is not their market. 24-year-olds can't afford them, they'll crash them if they can. So I was given the red carpet trip by Ferrari. It was wonderful. I loved that year, it was fantastic. At the end of the year, I was on a big race at Brands Hatch. Massive, it was the support race for the A1 Championship, the first round. 100,000 crowd, on the telly. I felt very important in my Ferrari. But the Ferrari wasn't the top class car on that day. I was lapped by something that I fell in love with. Oh my God, it was beautiful. At the end of the race, I went to see what the hell it was. It's called a Mosler. The owner of the team seemed to know me, invited me to join the team. I bought that car, sold my 2 Ferraris, the English spec and the European spec, and began racing a Mosler. Well, a Mosler is a proper racing car. It isn't a challenge car. It's frigging serious. First race was Alton Park, a circuit designed to kill you. The car is designed to kill you. I'm now with 30 drivers, half of whom are full professionals, including a Stig. And that Friday, the first test day before qualifying, was the worst day of my entire life. It was horrible. I think I learned more in the hotel bed that night, thinking it through. Following day, qualified 3rd, finished 3rd. A massive shock. I think the oldest, I'm 60, the oldest driver ever to achieve that. I finished third in the championship, the British GT Championship, one of the best ones in the world. It was incredible. And then we went to Dutch Supercar and Britcar and now GT Cup, which is a fantastic series. So we race, first of all, the Mosler, and now we race, well, we bought the Le Mans car that Lotus spent £3.5 million developing. Didn't cost me that. But we bought that car, £1 million worth of spares. We've built a replica of that car with better aeros and now a better engine. And that car will be raced next year in GT Cup. And if you look at the Mosler, 7-litre Mosler, it's bloody quick. We think our new Lotus replica will be even quicker. So I have a dealership as well, too, so it all kind of fits in rather well. So the dealership, the National Motorsport Academy, the link with Lotus, and another company that build most of Formula One's carbon composites, they're involved with this as well. So we've got quite a good picture, so our students can see a lot of stuff about motorsport. It's not just being in a university getting a degree.
Okay, thank you. So just finally on that one, my experience in motorsport. My name is John Paul Latham. I was a college and university student. So I've been a student in motorsport. I did a number of programs at college and university level. So I had an experience of being a student in various engineering and operational based courses. I spent about 8 years in education. It was a fantastic experience, both practical, academically, and sociably as well. I then went on to working in the motorsport industry, in Formula Renault and other various single-seater and saloon car championships right up to today. And I work in the Formula W series, the Women's series. I've done some testing with them. As a race car mechanic, I think it's important I stay involved in that for the reason that will become apparent shortly. I've also taught motor racing at college, 16 to 19 year level, rather like what Alan's done and what Leon's doing now, at BTEC and IMI courses at college for various different subjects. I taught that for 9 years. I didn't quite make the 10th year. I had other interests then. And as I said, I've been involved in the motorsport industry ever since I was in my teens. And what I do now is I've started a company that pulls together, well, rather I've pulled all my experiences in motorsport and education to do something positive for the industry and support the next generation of motorsport professionals. And that's where I am today with my company, Student Motorsport. So thank you very much for the interest and insight into what you all do. I hope that was interesting. Moving on quickly, because we only have about 25 minutes remaining. What I want to move on to really is to talk to the people that, with respect to directly involved in motorsport. So I'd certainly like to hear from Russell and Kevin again on what the motorsport sector thinks. Now, this is an area that was brought up. We want to know what the industry thinks of education and motorsport, and it's really, if Alan could start, because it was your sort of point that you raised. So what are you alluding to on this, and then can we bring in the people from industry?
As I alluded to earlier, we've just completed 3 months research, which has involved talking to a lot of the race teams, supply chain, and manufacturers about the skill sets that are being taught at colleges. And there is a big mismatch and I first experienced this with one of my students who, he's done really well for himself. He's now working in Formula E. He's worked with Rebellion Racing at Le Mans. But when he first left college, he went to work for Ginetta Junior team. One of the first things they asked him was to fit some bodywork and fit Zeus fasteners. And his response was, well, I've never been shown how to do that. So they said, well, okay, we need something welding on that chassis. Can you go and do some welding? Again, he couldn't do it because he's never been taught that. And the skills that a motorsport mechanic stroke engineer needs that are not being taught on the current crop of courses. And we're talking about college courses here. I mean, the universities, Kevin's focused on the higher education, the degrees, the master's degrees. we are focused more on, you know, the guys who want to go and work on the car, prep the car. So there's a big void in the skills, and we've been talking to a lot of the race teams, and we've had companies say they will not take students who've gone through a college that has, say they're running a motorsport course. And that's feedback that we've had in the last 2 to 3 months. We've had one team say they will only take students if they've gone through the National Motorsport College, which is here at Silverstone. Now, to me, that's a very, very sad indictment of the state of motorsport education at the FE level. What I'd like to say, there is lots of colleges out there that go far more in terms of commitment than just following the curriculum. We've got West Sussex here, they're actually running race cars, and I know there's quite a few other colleges, really good colleges, that provide excellent facilities, courses, they run race cars, and they place their students with race teams. And that is the sort of thing that the race teams are looking at, the industry wants from, the colleges to provide.
So I'll add to that. So when I was a teacher at the College of West Anglia, I taught there for 9 years, and I ran a 4-car mini challenge racing team, and it was paid drivers. And that's what Alan's saying. There are institutions out there, both university level and at college level, FE level and HE level, that are doing relevant experience in motorsport. That's what the industry needs, relevant experience in motorsport. It's just showcasing what's going on out there, the positive things that are going on out there, and sharing that information with other colleges and universities aren't quite doing what the industry needs. I think that's what Alan's saying, yeah. So can we perhaps move on to Kevin and Russell to wrap this area up, please? So again, reminder, what does the sector think of education and motorsport?
Where to start?
What do you think of it?
What do I think of it? I think it's not bad. Yeah, I think it's not bad. We're turning out some fantastic graduates from some of the universities, and I can't really comment so much on the colleges. I don't have as much to do with the college level, but the things that are lacking for me, as we said before, the hands-on skills. The graduates come to me and they've got the degree. That's great. Join a queue with another 1,000 kids that have got a degree, and the first question the employer asks is, "What else have you done?" And if you haven't done anything else, you're going to go to the back of the queue. So I think, even at degree level, you've got to be getting some hands-on experience at the same time to make it all work. Or, just having one or the other isn't enough. You've got to try and get that mix of the education and the hands-on experience. And I know it's easier for me to say it than it is to actually get it, but, that's quite important. The other thing I'd love to see is that we've got gaps, skills gaps in the market that I see firsthand, of course, because the teams come to me and my heart sinks when they ask me for a titanium fabricating welder. I'm like hen's teeth, you can't get them, because our apprenticeship programs were sort of cancelled years ago, and the guys that used to do that kind of work they're literally dying off, actually. Even things like wiring harness builders. I can't get wiring harness builders. People understand the mil-spec connectors to build complex wiring harnesses, and you can see the way the industry is going. We need composite guys, really good composite guys, and composites and electronics surely are a massive part of the future of not only race cars but road cars. So if you can get your head around that kind of thing, you work in composites, or you can build wiring harnesses. I've got jobs in America on 100 grand a year building wiring harnesses, and I can't find anybody to do it. And as long as the orange guy's in the White House, I can't get anybody over there either. So it's having real problems. And these guys, the teams themselves are to blame as well, because they're quite short-sighted. They don't train their own guys up. So they've been asking me for these guys for 6 years, and I said, if you started an apprenticeship program yourself 6 years ago, as I suggested, and tied in with a local college, you wouldn't be talking to me now trying to find these guys. But they're that flat out, most of these teams are saying, I can't take a guy off a job to teach somebody else how to do it, because we're under so much pressure to get the work out. So it's a little bit of a catch-22.
The idea behind what some of us are trying to do is to bring education and motorsport industry closer together to satisfy those job requirements, skills requirements, and gaps in skills. And again, if we can move over to Kevin on that, and also if I'd like to move into the next section as well, which is, so if you just want to touch on what the sector thinks or what you think, and moving over to what does the motorsport sector want from education?
Russell just mentioned composites. I know that there's nobody, not one person in the world, that knows all about composites. It's a massive subject and developing all the time. So we're looking for the best brains to be part of our journey. And we've got a couple. One make about 40% of all the carbon for Formula One cars. When you look at a grid, nearly half of what you see was made by my partner company. And even they're learning. So composites, if you want to be in that business, there's a huge demand. You'll never be unemployed if you've got a qualification in that. The other thing is that some people think they go to university, get a degree in motorsport, maybe even a master's degree, and they can get a job immediately working in motorsport. Well, they get a job, but they're not working. They can't be trusted. A friend of mine runs a big racing team, only takes on students with a master's degree. And when he has a new employee, he says, put the briefcase down, make the tea, don't touch the tools. So practical experience is absolutely vital. Gradually, after a few months, they can be trusted. But if you're sitting in a racing car that other people have prepared, you need to know the car's going to be safe. The wheels aren't going to fall off. So it's a very, very dangerous sport. It requires dedicated people with a passion, and that's why we do it.
Okay, thank you. So has anybody got any last-minute additions to what the sector wants? What does the motorsport sector want from education? Has anyone got anything to finish? No? That's fine. Right, the final section before we hopefully have time for questions is effectively what is being done in education and motorsport. And that's one of the reasons why we've invited these people here today. So some of us are actually, well, a lot of us are doing things in the motorsport industry in the panel, and the speakers here to support these two industries. So if we can start with Russell, perhaps. What are you doing for education and motorsport?
Not a lot, personally, to be fair.
I disagree. You're paving the way for jobs, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, my involvement is more trying to liaise with you guys to make sure that we're outputting the right sort of talent, you know, because we have got this amazing pool in the UK, as I said before, and of course, if you ask a Formula 1 team or a Formula E team what they really want, of course, they want perfection, and they want the job opening they've got, they want somebody that can come in and do that job straight away with no extra training. And really what they're saying to me is, go and take somebody out of another team that's done that exact job, and preferably a team that's higher up the rankings than we are. You know, and then that guy doesn't want to work for them because it's like trying to get somebody at the minute to work from Mercedes to work for Williams. You know, it's like, I'm not going to go there. So, you know, if they want perfection, they're never going to get it. They're never going to be satisfied. I think we've got to accept that.
There's not one solution. It's with any industry, okay? If I can move over to Leon and ask you the question, what are you doing for education and motorsport? How are you bringing it closer together?
So I still think that it's down to how we build our students' confidence,
right?
And how we're going to teach them the practical skills, but also how we do improve on their sort of strengths and promote their curiosities, but also pushing them out of their comfort zone. So I think that sort of practical hands-on, you know, side of the racetrack. Perhaps it's raining, but like today.
So some of the softer skills that you wouldn't actually have, I wouldn't have expected you to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at West Suffolk College's 3 pillars, is what we call them, we're looking at getting students to work with employers. So we're actually linked with AB Performance, who make the kit car that we're building. Mm-hmm. We often do stuff related to industry, so that's one of our pillars that we work with industries. We also have the qualification side of things, so they have to all do a qualification while they're in our care, I suppose you'd call it. But on top of that, we look at their character strengths. I'm not going to list them out now, but we look at like instilling a bit of ownership, you know, teamwork, but how they work with one another, and how if there's a problem, rather than just panicking, what they can do to manage that themselves.
So making mistakes is not a problem. So what effectively you're saying, because I know that I've taught the IMI courses myself, is you're teaching things in addition to what the course is providing. You're going a step further, and you really preparing people for the next step. If we can move on to Alan quickly, please. So what is it you're doing?
Before we actually start on that, I'd just like to pick up on a point that Leon said. One of the things that we found out on the research was that exactly the psychological side of the sport. We spoke to a couple of engineers who went through college programs, but they felt they were held back because they didn't have the same level of confidence. One of them is now a senior engineer within Jota, but when he was doing his college course, when he was trying to get placements, because he hadn't got the confidence to project his skills, he was better, achieving much higher results in his actual qualifications and skill sets and kind of hands-on tasks, doing much better than all the other students. But because he hadn't got the confidence to project that when he went for interviews, he was hampered and couldn't get placements with the top teams. So that's something we are looking at. So what are we doing? Heavily focused in the college FE level, we're developing a race series.
So this is what you're doing, is it? Yeah, SCU Motorsport.
SCU Motorsport now are developing a single-seater race series. We're designing a car, all the cars will be equal, and what we're going to create is a level playing field for colleges to go out and compete against each other with cars that are equal, even down to the point where there will be no advantage gained by sticking a 6-stone jockey in there because they'll be carrying ballast to a set level. So the only advantage that they will get is by setting the car up correctly. We're not running aero, so there'll be no way of masking the lack of performance, lack of handling by cranking the wings up, and we've exposed this to a lot of the race teams, the sector, the suppliers, and they all think it's a really good idea.
So why are you introducing a single mix series category that colleges can get and universities can get involved in? Why are you doing that?
Because there just isn't anything there at the moment, particularly at college level. One of the sort of key messages.
Is it accessibility? Is it cost and things like that?
Yeah, and we're designing the car. We're going to keep the cost down. We've built a couple of cars, so we've got an idea of what the college budgets they will be able to afford. So we're pitching the car in at a price to make it affordable for colleges, and we'll be launching here next year.
Okay, so it's a very positive thing you're doing, and we hope to see that develop. If we can ask the university what it is that you, how it is that you're, what is it you're doing to bring education and motorsport closer together? I know that you've got quite a big presence at the academy over at the Centre for Engineering at Bolton.
Yeah, so what we've tried to do is address it in multiple ways. So echo some of the comments already made about confidence. Supplying a supportive environment has been one of the key areas for us to give students a chance to make mistakes without feeling all of the negativity that can come with the pressures of motorsport. In a nutshell, for us, we will provide and have been providing practical experience in elite level motorsport, practical experience in club level motorsport, but then also on the engineering side, making sure the students have access to design and manufacturing capabilities to try and get them ready in terms of the order of magnitude of complexity might be different from F1, but students will all get a practical experience, hands-on and design manufacturing planning side of the development of race cars. So it's been really quite a recent development. A new curriculum has been developed to make sure that we can provide engineers and technician-based staff into motorsport, trying to echo what industry is asking us for, operational, competent people.
That's music to my ears, is that last sentence. So if we can finish with Kevin, and then we probably have a few minutes for some questions. So again, what is it? It's quite obvious what you do, but there are probably some insights that we're not aware of that you... I've had the pleasure of visiting the academy, and there's quite a lot that you're involved in. If you could perhaps discuss some of the things that are not so obvious that you do for education and motorsport.
We've got a lot of history and lots to talk about, but really the most important thing is the future. The future is electronics and composites. Batteries, control boards, motors and composites. It's a subject which is expanding very rapidly. It's not just motorsport, it's also aerospace. Two huge employers, and they're desperately short of qualified staff. So if you want to play at weekends with club cars, terrific. But if you want a seriously well-paid job, it's those two subjects you've got to focus on.
Okay, thank you. So hopefully what's being done is in motorsport from a few different perspectives there. I think what it is I'm trying to do in motorsport with my company, Student Motorsport, is be a medium and to illustrate some of the good things that are going on out there in motorsport, and to have a network where we can showcase these fantastic organisations and crucially the individuals that are making positive differences and a massive contribution to our beloved industry. Would you agree? We have about 5 minutes remaining, so hopefully you have some interesting questions for us. Don't be frightened asking questions. You've got students, colleges, universities and industries involved in motorsport here, so if we can open the floor to a few questions, please. I mean, we have various different people in the audience, so can we, do we need to get, thank you, we'll just get a microphone over there, but yeah, please fire your questions at us. And if you'd like to so who's your question for?
I think it's a question for the panel, because I think there's a couple of very, very interesting points to be made here, that if industry and the motorsport industry are crying out for electronic specialists and composite technicians, what is education doing to convince students that those are the routes to go down? It's not necessarily standing at the back of an F1 garage with a headset on staring at a monitor screen, that there's two areas there that need more emphasis on. Or is it too much of a challenge at the stage when you're talking to young people to convince them that those are the areas to look at?
I don't think those type of students will need convincing. I think the universities do illustrate that at the moment. Perhaps if we could hear from Bolton, do you have any input on that? Because that's really a university-aimed question, I think.
Yes, it's a very interesting question. And on one hand, if the industry is short of people, the universities are possibly also a little bit short of that knowledge. So there's an upskill period, which I would hope any university is going through. And from our point of view, what we're trying to do really is embed the knowledge, the student level knowledge requirements into major competitions like Formula Student. Formula Student has been around for a very long time, it's very well known, and it will lead to an enhanced employability status. Formula Student is pushing the electric side quite hard, they're pushing the autonomous side quite hard, so the obvious win for a university is to embed that level, because again, I mentioned quite a lot this order of magnitude of complexity allows us to get a foot into that type of forum. But there's also a lot of other competition, so there's a lot of electric go-kart based competitions, there's green power, which is a fantastic opportunity for students from school, college and university to compete in a form of electric racing. So that's the area we try and focus on really is, okay, we might do some nice research, we might be looking at all sorts of other things in the background, but in terms of real experience for students, it has to be in major competitions which are nationally known and trusted.
Alan O'Neill, if you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of the electric side first. Having taught at a college, I won't use the qualification, but one of the qualifications that we dealt with had students doing fault diagnosis on an electric window motor on a motorsport course. Well, how many race cars have you seen with electric window motors? So what we're doing is completely stripping this back. As we've said, we're developing a race series. One of the classes is going to be for electric vehicles and hybrids. We are talking to a university where they are developing electric motors. We've got industry buy-in, looking at batteries, and what we want to do is give them the opportunity, to get experience of actually utilising them, because at the moment you've only got Formula E where electric cars are used and they're not appearing on conventional race circuits, which is something that the governing body of motorsport needs to recognise that, you know, when you've got the government saying that by 2040 there will be no petrol engine cars for sale, I think that the sector needs to react and the governing body need to react.
Okay.
One of the other things that we're doing as part of the qualification, we're introducing a composites module, so giving them practical skills, and we've got an Italian company who we've been talking to for about 2 years who can offer composite training. They want to offer a reciprocal arrangement where we send students over to them and they can do a course to develop composite skills. And as part of the race series, what we're giving is the opportunity where we will supply a car in component form, a standard car with a tubular steel chassis, but then if a college wants to lay up their own composite tub, then they can transfer, so there's a design development module, so there's a stream through to help them develop these skills in a practical environment.
Okay, thank you. Quickly, I need to move on.
So at West Suffolk College, we mentioned earlier that we're working with local businesses, and actually Lotus approached us quite recently saying that they needed some electrical engineers. So we've actually invited them in, went through our course, and have now tailor-made the course to suit Lotus. So it's something that we're working with local businesses to try and sort of help in that sector.
Thank you. We have a few more minutes for questions. I'd like to get some different questions in. I think yourself had a question, yeah? Thank you.
You've all quite rightly said about getting experience in motorsport before trying to get into the actual industry itself. But like, for someone like myself, I'm a second-year student, a mechanical engineering student. What do I do to get myself experience or get my foot in the door into the industry so that I can go on and have a career in motorsport?
The answer is you become a gopher. You can go to any race meeting and offer your services free. They'll pay for your food, but it's all experience. You can try British touring cars. I mean, it's a very, very professional series. But if you're a willing gopher, you get some good experience from them. The only thing you can't do is Formula One, I suppose. But really, any amateur series is hands-on experience. You meet people, you learn stuff. It's also quite handy if you've got a range of other skills. For example, an HGV license. A lot of these teams have got transporters, but they have to employ, very expensively, a driver for the weekends. If you're part of the team and just do it for them, you'll be very, very welcome. So as many skills as you possibly can, and then you choose one or two that you want to be really, really good at and focus on those.
I'd like to add to that. So there's 4 things that you need in order to succeed and get in the motorsport industry, and I call them ingredients to success. I hope I remember them. One of them is to have an education of some sort. The second one is to be able to network with people, and that soft skills and otherwise. The third one is to get, and this is a key word, relevant experience, which we'll go on to. And finally, you need to be interested and be a fan in motorsport, and that's what this is all about, creating curiosities and interests. And if you come and talk to me later, I'll explain to you perhaps further how you can work with us to get work experience. You need to work with companies that are interested in supporting the next generation, and they are out there. Speak to some of these people. But it is about networking with the right people. You don't need to apply for a job in motorsport. If you network with the right people, it will happen. So one of the things, and I'm not trying to just talk about my company, but what Student Motorsport does is we work with educators and the industry to bring opportunities and placements, and we want to see more of that, and that's some of the things that these guys are doing. Can we move on to any more questions? Come on. Come on, there must be a question, anything. Okay. Yes. Come on, don't be shy.
In relation to the last question, how useful is to do volunteering in sport? Let's say officiating at sports events, or being a race marshal, or would that be a useful thing to do if you want to get into motorsport? and which is the best organized?
As drivers and competitors, we're very grateful to marshals. One came to our stand earlier, and on my racing car it says, "Thank you, marshals, thank you." We're short of them. We need as many volunteers as possible, and it's amazing how much you learn. It's a very nice atmosphere. It might be piss poor weather, pouring down and freezing cold, but you still have a nice time. They don't pay you, provide the food and an orange jacket, but in any way, getting involved with such a sport with such passion is a good idea.
Yeah, so I'm just one final little point on that. If you think about the Holy Grail might be a job in Formula One, there might be 10,000 applicants for that role. So what you've got to do is try and differentiate yourself and understanding the bigger world of motorsport, not just hands-on experience with a race car, marshalling, scrutineering, all of those other opportunities to show that you had a real strong interest in the motorsport industry in full, and make yourself as useful as possible. That's key. So you're doing the right things, looking at across the board. Volunteering in any way, shape or form is always going to be a CV enhancement.
Okay. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but these people are available. These people are available for the next couple of hours, and we are all online, I believe. So the sort of topics we've covered today is the current state of motorsport education, our respective experiences in motorsport and education, what the sector and the industry thinks of education and motorsport, what they actually want from us, and what's actually being done to bring the two closer together. So I hope that's been an interesting 1 hour and 5 minutes. Thank you for affording us your time, and I hope it's given you a good insight into getting involved in the sport, and it's not as scary as you think. So I'd like to take the opportunity to thank everybody in the audience for attending today, for listening, and especially our guests for you know, being dragged up here by myself. It was just myself and Russell, but we wanted an easy ride. And we wanted to mix it up for this year, so I think it's been a success. So if we'd just like to take a moment and congratulate these guys for coming up today. Thank you very much.